Hello again and welcome to the new and improved Mordian Glory Tactics videos. So as you can see guys, I've updated my entire channel into a new style. We're going for a clean and crisp look across the board with a simplistic but nice and neat and tidy black and white style on both the Facebook page and the YouTube channel. So I hope you guys are really excited about this. I know I am. I've been thinking about this for a long time. I've been wanting to up my game on YouTube. And this is the first step of many. So please give lots of constructive criticism. Let me know what you like about the change, what you don't like about the change. Do you think the clean and crisp look works? Because I quite like it, and I think it looks quite different to other YouTube channels out there. Lots of people have got like lasers and things flying around. But what I quite like is a crisp, clean look. Very Mordian Iron Guard. Everything in its place, polished to a high standard. That's what we're going for here, guys. So like I said, any constructive criticism, or not even constructive, just criticism in general, anything you can give me to help me improve these videos is absolutely appreciated. So please put that down in the comments section below. So let's take a look at some of those special rules, and then we're going to see how we can best apply them. Now this is going to be an in-depth look at the Lambdan line, guys. It's not going to be a brief overview. We're going to be really getting into the nitty-gritty of this regiment and how you can best apply it. So first things first, let's take a look at the Regimental doctrine, which is prize weaponry. Now this gives the Scions an additional AP-1 for all their weapons. Now it's really important to note, guys, that that's not just for their shooting weapons or just on their infantry. This is for all weapons: shooting, close combat, infantry or vehicle. Now it will not affect your Valkyries. A big misconception is that Valkyries are part of the Militarum Tempestus. They are not. Valkyries are part of the Aeronautica Imperialis, a separate organisation. They do not benefit from any of the regiment traits. Let's just get that out of the way at the very beginning. But now let's focus back on what is affected by it. So additional AP-1 is huge. I mean, you're looking at, in theory, an extra 16% damage output for a lot of your weapons. You're just going to be cutting through that armour with great effectiveness. Now, a lot of people, when they saw this, and a lot of people who have covered this doctrine have gone, wow, that is absolutely fantastic. Think of AP-4 plasma guns. Think of AP-3 hotshot las guns. And whilst, yeah, those things are really powerful, that's not actually the true strength of this regimental doctrine. Because, especially in competitive play, one of the big things that you're going to come across is invulnerable saves. Which means it doesn't matter how good your AP is, you don't affect the invulnerable save. And one of the most common ones is a 5+. And Space Marines can really spam out the 3+ invulnerable saves. So, whilst having AP-4 plasma is absolutely fantastic, it is a little overkill. I mean, it'll stop your opponent from getting a 6+ save with his Predator, for example. But then Marines don't typically take Predators and competitive list. It's all about the infantry. So again, to be fair, you will stop a Primaris Marine from getting a 6+ save. You know, he's just not going to get a save, and if he's in cover, he'll get a 6+ save. But like I said, there's a lot of invulnerable saves out there, guys. So yes, don't get the wrong end of the stick. I am saying having AP-4 plasma is fantastic, but having AP-3 hotshot las guns is great as well, because if you come across Valorous Heart Sisters of Battle, you need AP-3 because they just ignore AP-1 and 2 through various shenanigans. So yes, it is great, but actually the thing you want to be thinking about and applying this to is your low AP weapons. This actually boosts them up. So for example, think about the Taurox Prime, the Taurox Gatling Cannon, the Daka Prime. That thing is going to be insanely powerful. 20 strength 4 now AP-1 shots on that thing. It is going to tear through light and medium infantry with no issues whatsoever. Because one of the biggest disadvantages of the Taurox Prime with the Daka configuration, the Taurox Gatling Cannon, is that it got its legs chopped out from under it whenever it came across anything in cover. You've basically got ignore cover on your Taurox Primes now. That is just so good. I cannot stress enough how good that is. Don't forget, if you've put a Stormbolt or a Heavy Stubber on your Taurox Prime, they also benefit from this. So having your Torx Prime roll up and just pump out 22 or 23, depending on which pintle mount you went for, strength 4, AP -1 weaponry, it's just massive. And remember, it hits on 3s, guys. It's so good. It's also going to affect your hotshot volley guns, which are going to go from strength 4, AP -2 to strength 4, AP -3. Now, let's focus on Torx Prime a little bit more in relation to this regimental doctrine. It actually brings into focus not just the Dagger Prime, but also the General Prime. Now, the General Prime is the Torx Prime with the loadout of the Torx Battle Cannon and the autocannons. Because suddenly, what you've got from your little Torx Prime is a lot of Strength 7, AP -2, damage 2 weapons. And that is really good at focusing down Primaris. I mean, think about it. Yes, you can use the Torx Prime to try and dagger your way through those Primaris boys, but they've all got 2 wounds each, and they're all they're all hard as nails. And so, what's actually a really good alternative to that is just slamming them with AP with damage 2 weapons. Now, again, previously, the Torx Battle Cannon and the autocannons kind of struggled against Primaris because you plot them in cover, they're on a 3-up save, and they're going to mitigate most of your damage. But now your AP -2, they're on a 4-up save. Even when they're in cover, in their best case scenario, they're on a 4-up save. And that means that they've got a 50-50 chance of saving one of your wounds, and if they fail it, they are just slain. They are dead. That damage 2 just slams into them. So if we do a little bit of quick napkin math hammer here, if you're looking at 3.5 shots from your Torx Battle Cannon, combined with your 4 shots from your autocannons, then you're looking at 7.5 shots in total. 2/3 of those will hit, so you're looking at 5 hits. 2/3 of those will wound, so you're looking at approximately 3 to 4 wounds, somewhere between there. That's going to be what those Marines are then going to fail 1 to 2 saves. So you're looking at approximately, roughly, if all goes in your favour, you're looking at about 2 dead Marines outright. Now you compare that to the Dagger Prime, which is going to have its 20 shots, and it's going to have a shot volley guns. That's true as well. But remember, it's got a much shorter range, so you might have to move to get into range. But let's say you're in range already. You've got your 20 shots from your Gatling cannon. It's going to hit with 2/3. Roughly we're looking at about 14 hits. Then it's going to wound with only half of those, which is 7 wounds. And then the enemy is going to have a 3-up save, which means they're going to save 2/3, which means you're actually only going to get about 2 wounds through, which is only 1 dead Primaris. Maybe 2.5. And then you've got your hotshot volley gun to go as well. Now that is 8 shots, and it is going to hit with 2/3, so for being a bit generous, you're looking at about 6 hits. And then it's going to wound with half, so you're looking at 3 wounds. And then it is AP -3 admittedly, so the Marines are only going to have a 5-up save, even in cover, which was going to result in another dead Marine. So what you actually have, guys, if you look at that, the Torx Prime on paper looks way superior. And it is at shredding light infantry, but when you put it up against Primaris, which is the unit to compare most things to, they're the middle ground for everything, then actually the General Prime can do just as well as the Torx Prime, but it does it from a much longer range. It does it from 48 inches, not 24. So whereas previously the General Prime with the battle cannon and the autocannons was not even in contention. It was never considered. Now, it's definitely in contention. Okay? Because it's able to... Yes, it's not as good against light infantry hordes, but it is good. It is quite anti-meta, and it is good against Marines. And you can apply those weapons against other targets, which the Dagger Prime is not as good at, like light armor. So what we've actually got here, guys, is I'm not saying the Dagger Prime or the General Prime, one is better than the other. I'm saying they're actually fairly equal in the hands of the Lambdan lads. And that's not true for most of the regiments. I'll be honest with you, most of the regiments, it's just not the case. But in the hands of the Lambdan Lions, with that additional AP -1, you don't have to be so afraid of the Torx battle cannon and the autocannons anymore. You see how depending on which regiment you take, really affects how you're going to build your list and what loadouts you're going to go for. It gives you a lot more options. Now, moving away from the vehicles and towards the infantry, like I said, having AP -3 hotshot lasguns is great. It's going to help you shred Marines. It's going to help you get past those valorous heart sisters. But by and large, it is kind of overkill. AP because the hotshot lasgun, it is seen as a Marine killer in the fluff, but in reality, what it is, it's just a light infantry destroyer. Because as much as you want to be able to just use the hotshot lasguns against Marines, the fact it's only strength 3 means that it does actually struggle in most instances to wound Marines. What it's really good at doing is just shredding anything with a light infantry saber 5+ or a 6+. So you don't really need the AP -3 on those guns. Again, don't get the wrong stick. I'm not saying it's bad. It's great. I'm just saying in a lot of instances, it's going to be overkill. What the AP -1 opens up on infantry is it makes your weapons like your grenade launchers and your flamers, things that you would never consider taking on Scions before, makes them actually kind of good. Because for 3 points now, you can take on one of your Scions a grenade launcher and you can shoot a crack round from it. You're never going to shoot the frag rounds, forget about the frag rounds, but you can shoot crack rounds from it. And those are now strength 6, AP -2, D3 damage. At 24-inch range, it's practically an artillery piece for Scions. Because normally they have to get up close and personal to be able to sling out some high damage, high AP shots with high strength. Not anymore. Lambdan Lion Scions with grenade launchers are great Primaris killers from a distance. Yeah, of course, deep strike your plasma in there, blow those Primaris away. I'm not contending that whatsoever. But you can't start with every guy in deep strike, and plasma guns are expensive at the end of the day. You know, yes, you do want to equip as many of your Scion squads with plasma as possible, but they are expensive. And having that option in the toolbox that you can pull out, of having a squad that you can build for 35 points plus 2 grenade launchers, 6 points, for 41 points, and it can just sit at the back in cover, plinking away with crack grenades, just plump, just firing those things off and just slamming strength 6 AP -2 rounds into people, just covering an objective. That, my friends, is the perfect, cheap, objective holding squad. It just sits in the middle of the board, in the back of the board, providing good fire support. It's the same price as a 10-man guardsman squad, but it's got a smaller footprint, it's got a better armor save, and it's able to just sling out some decent firepower. Now, again, I'm not saying that your grenade launcher is going to replace your plasma guns. No. But it is a great tool to have in the toolbox. And with your Scions, you typically want to break them down into 2 battlefield roles. The ones that are going to be dropping in and smashing face, and the ones that are going to be moving up, starting on the board in those Tauroxes, and that are going to have to hold ground and take objectives. That's where these grenade launchers start coming into play, where you start thinking about it. Because imagine the following scenario. You have got half of your Scion infantry in either Valkyries or in deep striking, armed to the gills with plasma. Perfect. They can come in, they can smash enemy units where you want, and they've got to do that job. They can't afford to mess up, because if they don't do their job, they're just going to get blown away the next turn. So you give them the plasma. You make that a worthwhile investment. On the other hand, if you're going to have a bunch of Scions in the other half of your army, which are starting on the board in those Tauroxes, those Tauroxes aren't going to want to move much after they've got within 24-inch range if you've gone with the Dakar Primes, because you don't want them hitting on 4s, you want them hitting on 3, so you don't want to be moving and getting that -1. The Scions you want accompanying those Tauroxes are going to want to have grenade launchers, because they can stay alongside the Tauruxes. They're all within the 24-inch range bracket, and they're able to lob out some decent, punchy shots with those grenade launchers. Now, I'm not saying that you want to be running all your Taurux squads like that, but having a few, keeping the cost down, allowing you to afford other upgrades, some plasma pistols for your drop-in squads. Where you can shave points in one area to invest in another area is really what you want to be thinking about when you're building your Scions, because you have to squeeze every penny. You have to get your value out of every point. And so being able to save some is great. So it also, don't just want to focus on the grenade launchers. One of the big criticisms that flamers get in this edition is they don't ignore cover. Well, now your Lambdan Lion flamers effectively do. And there is the stratagem that the Scions have access to, which allows them to drop out of a Valkyrie and deploy within 5 inches of an enemy unit. And that's great for your flamers. You can use a flamer command squad, nice and cheap, 4 flamers, and you can just drop out and you can unleash 4d6 strength 4 AP-1 hits. And the AP-1 makes a huge difference. That is a really good objective clearing squad. So I don't want to labour the point too much, guys. I feel like I've made it fairly clear. Yes, the Lambdan Lion AP-1 is great for the weapons that are already hitting hard, but what it really does, the hidden gem of the regiment, is it brings up your medium strength low AP weapons and actually makes them medium strength high AP weapons, which is fantastic. Don't forget about power mauls. Whilst they are an index and now legends option, so you probably can't take it to tournaments. If you're playing in a normal game, putting power mauls on your sergeants is a great idea, because it allows you now to have all the advantage of the power fist essentially with none of the disadvantages. I mean, at the end of the day, guys, consider this. There's a lot of vulnerable saves out there, and you often come across 4+ invulnerable saves. Loads of factions these days are getting the ability to project a 4+ or 5+ invulnerable save out around a character. And so having AP-4 plasma often, like I said, is overkill. And you know what? You can practically get 4 grenade launchers for the price of 1 plasma gun. And they're all going to be, if your opponent is a Marine with who's in cover or is using a 4+ invulnerable save, then the plasma and the grenade launcher, they practically do the same thing. The plasma can wound on 2s if you overcharge it, yes. So technically it's got 16% better damage output, but it costs 4 times as much for the same average damage at 24-inch range. You see where the grenade launcher starts creeping in and what tactical battlefield role it might be able to fulfill. Now, I've spoken a lot about the prized weaponry in the AP-1, but there is actually 3 other things we want to look at: the Relic, the Warlord trait, and the Stratagem. So let's get into those now. So the Relic is probably one of the best relics in the Imperial Guard, not just the Militarum Tempestus, and it's a refractive field generator. You put this on a character and it gives a 5+ save for all friendly Lambdan Lion units around that character. Now, it's not wholly within, guys. Okay? It is actually just within. So you can have just a toe of one guy from one squad in range of that bubble shield and the whole unit gets it. Now, this is really good for your Scion infantry, because you can deploy large groups of guys around this 5+ invulnerable save relic bearer, and no matter what the enemy hits them with, they're getting a 5+ save, which means whilst you're putting out additional AP against the enemy, your men suddenly become a lot more durable, because you already start off with a 4+ save. Going to a 5+ is pretty good. It can't really be overstated how powerful that is. It massively increases the durability, because one of the big problems I have with Scions is a 4+ save really isn't that big a deal, because so many people, yes, because 1, you're only toughness 3, but 2, everyone's AP is through the roof these days. I mean, look at the Lambdan Lions themselves. So that 4+ save often just goes to a nothing. They get hit with an AP-2 and AP-3 weapon. It just means nothing. You basically become no better than a regular guardsman. But suddenly, if you're able to really castle up around this warlord and you're getting a 5+ invulnerable save, that's a really big deal. what's actually really interesting about this is it doesn't just affect infantry. It actually also affects your Tauroxes. It affects all Lambdan line units. What's the biggest criticism that people have in Imperial Guard vehicles? No invulnerable save. What can the Lambdan Lions give to their Torx Primes? Invulnerable saves. That is really, really important to remember. And a really good tactic to build up with the Lambdan Lions is to have a lot of your guys deep striking in, sure, but actually have the bubble shield guy starting on the board and put him either in one of your Torx Primes or out of the Torx Primes but out of line of sight, where he can project his bubble field to, like, you can easily get 4 primes in range. Easily. 5 at a push, 4 easily. That suddenly gives your Torx Primes huge increases in durability. Because again, they're so vulnerable. With being only toughness 6 and with a 3+ save, they're so vulnerable to someone alpha striking them. I mean, think about Dark Elder Ravagers with all those AP -3 Dizzies and Dark Lances and Space Marine Lascans, which are now AP -4. Suddenly, you don't care because you've got a 5+ vulnerable save on all of your Torxes. Now, speaking of making a little castle with your Torxes, this actually leads us into the next thing I want to talk about, which is the Warlord trait. And the Warlord trait for Lambdan Lions is another doozy. It just knocks out the park. All units within 6 inches can reroll 1s to hit. So what you actually want to do with your Lambdan Lions is to take your Warlord and make him the Relic Bearer at the same time. And just have this guy sat in a castle, and if not castle, in a mobile pillbox of Tauroxes. And you're going to have all your Tauroxes. They're going to move up turn 1. You're going to have 5 of them. They're in a 2,000 point list. They're going to be drawable. You might lose 1, but you've got your 5+ invulnerable save. And suddenly you're holding the middle of the board with 40 toughness 6 3+ save wounds with a 5+ invulnerable save, and they're putting out 30 shots each. You've gone Daka. You've got 20 Torx Prime Gatling cannon shots, the 2 Stormbolter shots, and the 8 Hotshot Volley Gun shots. That's a lot of Daka. And now it's rerolling 1s as well. It's like being able to give orders to your Torx Primes. Now, yes, you can stack this with your infantry to give them reroll 1s to hit on that sweet plasma. And that means you can also then issue them Bring It Down for reroll 1s to wound. You can stack that. Not disputing that. But this really boosts your Torx Primes. It is really, really good at doing that. And what this actually allows you to do is, rather than to overstack on your drop force guys, it allows you to equally distribute the power boosting of like orders with reroll 1s across the whole army. Suddenly all your infantry are rerolling 1s to hit with your orders, and now all your vehicles are rerolling 1s to hit. You combine this, if you really want to get all the rerolls, you then take a couple of Valkyries with an officer of the fleet, and he's giving them rerolls. So suddenly all your drop infantry are getting rerolls from orders, all your vehicles are getting rerolls 1s from your warlord, and then your Valkyries are getting reroll 1s from your officer of the fleet. It's reroll 1s for days. That massively increases the accuracy of your shots and thus your damage output. It's really, really good. It equates to, math hammer wise, it equates to you hitting on 2s. So that's not bad at all. Now, the last thing that we want to talk about with the Lambdan Lions is the Stratagem. Now, this is gifts from the Mechanicus, and it essentially allows you to get some mortal wound output. Very, very important for Scions who traditionally kind of struggle with mortal wound output because they don't have great access to Psychers. I mean, yes, you can take Primaire Psychers, but they're kind of pricey. This allows you to get your mortal wounds in another way. So it costs 1 CP, you stick it on a Scion unit, and for every 6 to wound that they get with a hotshot weapon, it does a mortal wound instead. Now, there are a couple of ways to get the best use out of this. First way, hotshot volley guns. They've got a great rate of fire. Okay, so either on your Torx Prime, which comes with 2 of them, so because it's Lambdan Line units, it's not Lambdan Line infantry units. So put it on your Torx Prime, and suddenly you're able to shoot that thing at a vehicle and chip some last wounds off it. Fantastic. Or a command squad with 4 hotshot volley guns. I mean, that's going to really pump out the mortal wounds. However, the best way to take advantage of this is actually not on volley guns, but on hotshot las guns, because you're doing mortal wounds. So the extra strength of the hotshot volley guns, you don't care about that. All you're trying to do is get as many mortal wounds as possible. Now, put this on a 10-man squad of Scions. Now, the sergeant does get his last pistol, but he's probably not going to be in range. Now, you want to be looking at getting your guys in rapid fire range. So you're going to have to not put them in a Valkyrie, essentially, because you can't move after disembarking via grav shoot from the Valkyrie, and you can't deep strike into range with hotshot las gun rapid fire. So this is either going to be in a Valkyrie which is going to move forward 1 turn, and then turn 2 your guys will be able to get out in rapid fire range, or it's going to be from a Torx Prime. Okay, either or. But you're going to want to have these guys in a transport, and their job is to get into rapid fire range and to just shoot either an enemy character and just get past those invulnerable saves, or at an enemy vehicle and to chip off the last few wounds. Okay, so if we math hammer it, you will be able to get 36 shots from your hotshot lasgun guys in rapid fire range in a 10-man squad. Now you're going to hit with 2/3 of those, which is 24. Now you're only going to wound on 6s if you're shooting a big old target, and if you're looking at mortal wounds, which means you get 6 mortal wounds through. Okay, now that's not bad. That's your average. That's 6 volleys. We're not even taking into account rerolling 1s. You could put an order on them, give them reroll 1s. You could put them near your warlord trait with keys to the armory for reroll 1s. Okay, you could do that. But even without that, just 10 guys firing 4 shots apiece in rapid fire range, you're looking at 6 mortal wounds. That's enough to assassinate most characters. Okay, now most characters have an invuln save, but it's not totally mainstream for them to have feel no pain yet. Some do, of course, and it is becoming more prevalent for everyone to get feel no pain, but not everyone gets it. Most characters rely upon an invulnerable save. So if you can just remove that, this little 10-man squad becomes a really good way of character sniping. It's 70 points. Or it becomes a fantastic tank hunter unit. For 70 points, you can do 6 wounds to anything in the game. Anything in the game, you can do 6 wounds to it. Mortal wounds. That is light vehicles destroyed. That is heavy vehicles finished off. I mean, it does give you the opportunity to really just kill something that you want to kill. And it's a really powerful stratagem for 1 CP, and considering how easy it is to leverage it. Now that's it, guys. That is the Lambdan Lions covered in quite a lot of detail. We've gone into different unit loadouts, we've gone to tactics, we've gone into rough army builds, how you want to be running these guys. The crux of the matter is, and the summary of the Lambdan Lions is, that they are able to do more damage and do great mortal wound output whilst being able to absorb much more damage from the enemy. That's actually a 1-2 punch, because not only are you doing more damage, which increases your durability because you're taking less from the enemy because they've got less return fire, but then on top of that, you're just more durable because of your 5+ invulnerable save that you can get on around your warlord. So it's a double doozy. Now, that actually means that you're starting to solve the issue that Scions have inherently, which is a durability issue. You can hit hard, hit fast, but if it all goes tits up, you've got a few things in the bag that let you just about cling on. You've got 5 invulnerable save. Maybe that first squad with the plasma didn't quite finish off what it should have done. Get the mortal wound squad in there. So now that we've seen what you get when you take the Lambdan Lions and what you get access to, let's now delve into how they perform as a standalone force and also as an allied detachment. Well, I can confidently say, guys, that you can run a pure Lambdan Lion army as a standalone force. You will still have some of the innate difficulties that you have with running any standalone force and not souping, and you will also, even with all the advantages they have, you'll still be playing Scions at the end of the day. Don't expect them to be these indestructible bulldozers. It's only a 5+ field invulnerable save at the end of the day. But the Lambdan Lions trait is just a universal boost of power across the entire army. Unlike traits like the Capic Eagles, which only affects their infantry, the Lambdan Lions, you can take them as a standalone force and everything is improved by their regimental doctrine. And whilst I say pure Scion, pure Lambdan Lion, it's very important to remember that you can still take auxiliary units with your regimental doctrines and you won't lose all your juicy Lambdan Lion goodness. That means you still have access to psychers and support officers like the Officer of the Fleet, and you still also, in theory, have access to things like Ratlings, Ogrins and Bulgrins. So bear that in mind, and if you're finding when you're building your army that you really wish you had a bit of close combat punch, you can easily make use of some good Bulgrins or Ogrins. Well, not so much Ogrins these days after the chapter approved points nerf, but Bulgrins definitely. However, I would give a word of caution, which is you're a shooting arm at the end of the day. It's best to lean heavily on that. Trying to make a combat Lambdan Lion force, even though you have got AP-1 in close combat, it's not really the best way to run them. So my advice to you, if you are considering adding auxiliary units to your Lambdan Lion force, the best thing you can do is take a look at the Astropaths. You don't need Rattling Snipers. To be honest, you've got maneuverability to target characters and get around the way you need to go. And you don't need the fire support and the ballistic skill 3+ that the Rattling Snipers give you either. You will be taking Officers of the Fleets, obviously, if you're taking Valkyries. But like I said, you really want to be looking at Astropaths, because I've said several times throughout this video that having AP-1 is like having ignoring cover, and it's great. Well, what if you could have both? Because if you look at the Astropaths datasheet, it has an ability called Astral Divination. And what that allows you to do is to pick an enemy unit within 18 inches of the Astropath, and it removes the benefit of cover from that unit for friendly units that target it which are within 6 inches of the Astropath. So if you have an Astropath and within 6 inches you have a couple of Scion squads or a couple of Torx Primes, it's not just infantry units, then not only are you getting your additional AP-1, you're also then ignoring cover against that designated unit. And you can take 3 Astropaths. So if you want to spread your firepower across 3 enemy units, you can do that, and you've got ignore cover and AP-1. Now you're really starting to shred anything that doesn't have an invulnerable save. But also, if you're looking at those weapons we mentioned before, like grenade launchers and flamers, you're really laying the hurt on. I mean, your flamers, a Lambdan Lion flamer goes from, you know, giving a Space Marine a 2+ save and cover. You then have your AP-1 from being Lambdan Lion, and then you ignore cover on that Space Marine. You've got him up to a 4+ save with your just basic good old-fashioned flamers, and you can get reroll 1s to wound on those flamers via Bring It Down, because Bring It Down is no longer just targeting big things, it's against anything. So you really do want to be looking at those auxiliary units as well. Now, as an allied detachment, I would actually say the Lambdan Lions are just a good take-all-comers allied detachment to have. There are some other regiments out there, like the Scion Jackals, that are very good as an allied detachment and quite weak as a standalone force, because the Scion Jackals rely upon another person cracking open the enemy target so that they can then make them all run away. Lambdan Lions are, the problem with that is you may not face enemies that suffer from morale at all. And the good thing about the Lambdan Lions is that their ability is always going to be in play. As I have mentioned at the beginning of this video, the reason I believe these guys are so strong is because they're just uncomplicated. Okay, their ability is always in play. It's always going to be useful. There will always be a time in every battlefield that every battle that you play a 40k where having extra AP makes a difference, because there's no such thing as a 2+ invulnerable save, as far as I am aware anyway. Knowing Games Workshop, they're probably going to release something soon, but as far as I'm aware, there's no such thing as a 2+ invulnerable save. So even if you're facing someone who has a 2+ regular save and a 3+ vulnerable save, like a Terminator or someone else with a Storm Shield, well, guess what? Your AP still comes into play on your Torx Primes, because you get them on an AP -1. You also use the ignore cover. Suddenly you've got them on that 3-up invuln. You've got them on their worst save. It's still a 3+ invuln, but it's still technically their worst save, which you couldn't do if you were running another Scion regiment. You know, your Torx Primes, even if you were ignoring cover on them, the enemy's still getting a 2+ save. Lambdan Lions really have the ability to make sure that their opponent is always taking their armor save roll on the worst possible save that they can. And that's a really powerful thing to do, because you're smashing through your opponent's defenses and you're essentially putting the ball in your court, and you're making the opponent take saves that you want him to take, not saves that he wants to take, which is really important. So there you go, guys. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Like I said, leave lots of feedback on what you think about the new style and formatting of the videos. And if I have missed anything, please put it down in the comment section below, and I will get back to all your questions as soon as I can. So thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and of course, I'll see you guys next time.